Hello and greetings from Germany, Ananja Vihara. This is Ayya Phalanyani speaking. I hope that internet will be fine today and not break off so often. Here autumn starts and with it storms and rains and so on. So that can have an effect on our talks. So today, question and answer. I think that this is a good moment to, for some minutes, go into silence and to breathe a little bit together. Just breathing in and out and settling down at where we are. Just breathing in and out, doing so softly. For some of us, it's the morning, maybe early morning hours. For others, it might be afternoon, as for example here in Germany or in Europe. And for others, it's evening, early or late evening. And whatever time it is, we get ready to be just there and then. We notice how we are sitting, whether on a chair, on the floor, in a silent environment or in a noisy, busy environment. That all doesn't matter. Even if we're in a train to work and listen to this, we know that we're sitting. And we accept things just as they are, where we are. No matter if we're preparing for a day full of work, or preparing to relax for a good night's rest. The moment that we live, the moment that our life actually happens and passes, is now, and now, and now. And the more we know about this moment, when we live it, when we are there with what is happening, then we live our lives. And when we know what is going on, and when we are acceptant to what there is, we might be without aversion and without greed, at least for moments. And this moment is just breathing in and out, preparing the heart, preparing the mind to listen. So, you just continue to breathe and to be there in the moment. And I try to find answers to the questions. The questions that come from last week are: what is the difference between a Buddha and an Arahanт? And since we talked about it a little bit last week, I want to start with this and then let go of it, then finish it, and maybe go to the other questions. There are several. So what is the difference between a Buddha and an Arahant? Well, first of all, I have to say that depends whom you ask. The words are treated differently in the Mahayana traditions and in Theravada. In the Mahayana tradition, everybody has at least Buddha nature, and it would be possible, as I understand it, for somebody to become a Buddha. If we look at the Theravada tradition from which I come, so for me, this is the more, what I trust. So when we look at the Theravada tradition, there we have the word Buddha for the Buddha only. And there are several suttas who make a distinction distinguishment between the Buddha and Arahants, because the Buddha would be the perfectly full self-enlightened one. So a person who did really find the truth, find Nibbana all by himself. There need to be several signs that his body needs to have. There need to be several things that he will do. We talked about that last week. So this is not a topic of what we talk today, but it's quite distinguishable. So you can't really say that every Arahant would be called a Buddha, because not all Arahants, although they might have overcome greed, hatred, and delusion, they did not do it by themselves. They did it by following after what the Buddha taught them. That is one major distinguishment. So then again, they when I say they, I mean the Theravadins, think, when I look at my teachers or so, I believe they would die of shame if they would put the word or even the thought about themselves that I am a Buddha or I want to become a Buddha within their minds. This is just kind of something. A Buddha is a Buddha, and that a person like a Buddha is born only once every eons, and is such a great being and such a great treasure for this world that I don't think any Theravadin would think this I do. I become a Buddha. But the Buddha was called an Arahant. So vice versa, it's possible. You can call the Buddha an Arahant, but Arahants or people who long to become Arahants would not have called themselves Buddha. And I think in Theravada tradition wouldn't call themselves Buddha, but would say Arahants. So the way the Buddha found out, without having any trace of the teaching of a former Buddha in to his help, that is a thing only a Buddha can do. There might be Pacheka Buddhas who find out the truth for themselves but cannot teach them and cannot bring the Dhamma to life and teach it such as the Buddha could. So there are indeed some distinguishments. Difficult word. So, and in addition to that, when we look at, I think it was Majjhima Nikaya number 1, the Mula Pariyaya Sutta, the Buddha speaks about the worldling. He speaks about Arahants, and he does speak about the Tathagata, which is another word for the Buddha, as we learned last week. So there, in Majjhima Nikaya number 1, it is said that the Arahants overcome and become Arahants by overcoming greed, hatred, and delusion, by abandoning these and by abandoning the taints, because they hear the Buddha's teaching. And in a Buddha, there is no trace whatsoever left. So you can, I have it here on my desktop, and I think we talked about it last week, so I wouldn't put too much emphasis on this week. So, but just remember, Majjhima Nikaya number 1. It's long and you can shorten several things, but if you will read the paragraphs about the Arahants and the Tathagata, so then you will understand that even the way of understanding is different. Now, it is not completely a fault. I wouldn't call it a fault, because the word Bud just means awake. And Buddha means the awakened one, the enlightened one. So that actually, if you just take the word, then many people can do it. And then the Mahayana tradition is not wrong in saying, yes, everybody can do. Everybody has the nature to awaken. That is so, and I won't debate that, because yes, everybody has the nature and is capable of awakening. It might take eons, but it's possible for all of us. So I wouldn't say the Mahayana take on it is very wrong or so. That no. But it's just a different use of the word Bud, which is the root of the word. So this is enough for that question. We had then the question, what was it again? What things are, more or less, I think the question was, what things are overcome by a stream enterer? Also, very interesting question that arose in a discussion. A stream enterer. I heard my teachers say, well, to become a stream enterer is not that difficult in comparison to become an Arahanт. A stream enterer, to become a stream enterer is fairly easy. My teacher said that, so we don't know. But a stream enterer has left behind several things, so it will be quite clear that this person is different from other beings, from other people, is not the same like other people. On the other hand, they will often behave very, very much like normal people. because greed, hatred, and delusion are not at all eliminated within stream enterers. They are there, as I understand it, full on. But they do not take things personally anymore because they understand for the first time when they transition from one lineage into the other lineage and become a seika, a trainee, they understand that there is no such thing as a person, as a, and that they lose their belief in the personality, although they of course will still speak about I am and you are, and so I think the language would be very, very similar. Of course, there would not be very much difference. And I think the difference is more that there has been a glimpse of understanding, because us stream enterer must have a glimpse of Nibbana, even just for a very brief moment. There must have been some insight that was so deep that it transformed the person. And several things would not be possible to do anymore. So the belief of that there is a self is not uprooted, not entirely abandoned. This is something only an Arahanht will lose. Only an Arahanht will lose Atimana, the understanding, and understand that there's totally not a self. And I think this is most probably the greatest transition that somebody can make, to see within themselves there is not such a thing as a self, even if they cannot live up to it yet then in daily life. So also a stream enterer will not be bound anymore to rites and rituals. That doesn't mean that stream enterer wouldn't keep the rules or wouldn't take the precepts anymore because he says, well, that's a ritual. No, not at all. But the goodness and sila becomes so part of that being that there is no such idea of breaking a rule anymore. And I'm not talking about the 311 or 227 rules for bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. I'm talking about the 5 rules. So a person who has become a stream enterer just would not see a point in breaking a rule, particularly not for self-enjoyment or for sense pleasures or something like that. So there is not much in to expect in this regards. But I think ideas like when you put a little stone or whatever in your purse, or a little penny in your purse, and think, oh, only when I have this, I will be rich one day. And if I lose it, I will lose all my money, or things like that. For sure, a stream enterer wouldn't think anymore. That is certain. Um, and for example, wanting and aversion is only less in a non-return, in a once returner, and extinguished only in a non-returner. So it must be that a stream enterer would be subject to wanting and aversion. Excuse me. I have been thinking actually of maybe not continuing the talks for some time, to just recover a little more. I'm not quite getting on my feet again after having COVID. It's still kind of not so good. And if you had asked me 5 minutes ago, I would have known what the third thing was. And now I can't remember. Mm, right. The unshakable confidence in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, of course, that is. So you would have unshakable, totally full trust in the Buddha and the Dhamma and the Sangha. And you wouldn't even think of consulting somebody else. These are the first three fetters that a stream enterer will have cut through, will have abandoned. So this thank you. For me, it's also a great lesson to have not access to what you know, and to forget things. The other day, one day, it was quite heavy. I had a quite heavy drawback or fallback, drawback, I think. And in the morning, I looked at my coffee cup and put it down. And I really had forgot to put coffee in. And then I sat down to have my breakfast. And then I wondered, where's my coffee? And then I remembered I forgot to put it. And this happened later with my robe. It happened with a cup of tea. So I'm forgetting so many things. It could be terrifying, but I'm trying to have really a lot of patience with it, and also be acceptant. Like, as I said in the beginning, when we had the few minutes of meditation, this is what I really practice right now, just to accept things as they are, that this body is frail, and the mind is just not clear, and that it's taking time anyway. So we have cleared, I think, the 3 fetters that are overcome by a stream enterer. And I also mentioned that in a once returner, we have the liking and disliking, let's put it that way, diminished, not abandoned. That is in a non-returner. So then I have written down the question, what is the practice of appropriate attention for beginners? That also is a question that occurred last week, was asked last week, and I said I will talk about this today. What is an appropriate attention for beginners? Practice appropriate of attention. So I think people are very, very different. Each of us has their own body and mind, nama rupa. I want to talk about that if I continue, but I want to talk about that maybe the next time, about nama and rupa and how we create the world. So everybody who has nama and rupa, so all the people, we are different. We're not equal. None of us is better. None of us is worse or inferior. We're not even equal. We're all different. And that is very important. And that is also very important for meditation. So some people here in Germany, for example, we learn concentration. But we do not learn to be aware so much. In Thailand, for example, I was under the impression that the people do not learn so much to concentrate, or concentrate in a much softer way, and learn attention also. Don't know so much about other countries. So there are really cultural differences. But for one who has a strong concentration and has learned, as we here in Germany, that concentrate more. We learned that from the teachers, and we're blamed, and if we do not concentrate. So when we hear about you must concentrate, or meditation is about concentration, then it can become difficult. It's not for us so much. We shall learn awareness much more than concentration. But occasionally you do meet, even in the West, even in Germany, people who don't have such a good concentration, but need to train it, but have a good awareness. And there are ways to find out what type you are. We're not talking about that today because it is in one of my talks already. And so we all might need different approaches to meditation practice, or to the practice of the Buddha's teaching, to make the most of it, to get the best results. This being said, although the Buddha gave so many talks, and most of them are actually about meditation and practice, and it is said there are 84,000 suttas. So he did speak about that a lot, and not all the suttas sound the same. Some of them sound quite different. And some of them might even, if you don't really understand fully, they might even sound confusingly opposite. But it is like when it is said, many ways lead to Rome. And there are different ways that lead to enlightenment. The closer you get to the goal, the more similar it becomes, the practice. And it all comes down to there are two types, namely concentration and awareness, or to say it in Pali words, samma sati, that would be the awareness, and samma samadhi, that would be the concentration. Or I would like to say focus. I think focus really has that connotation of one-pointedness. And in the end, we need both. We need to develop both. And when we want to become stream enterers, or more than that, further than beyond that, we need to have both on high levels. So samma samadhi and samma sati must be on a high level, higher and higher level, increasing by the day, by the time we practice. So much so that you can keep your awareness on focused, that you keep, how to put it in English words, that you keep your mind focused on your object of awareness. That can be either one single point, one single thing, or as we do it in the Mahasi technique, very, very, very different points, but nonetheless with very, very high focus and very high awareness. But so you start to practice with what you can. And it is always good to start calming down. And that you do by focus, that you do by samadhi, by the practice of your focus, of your concentration. So you want to bring your mind to a state where you can focus, really focus on one thing. And where you feel, now it's becoming calmer. My mind is becoming calmer. My heart is not going out so much anymore to things here and there. Is not attending to everything that bothers. So this is always good to do. And with that, you can go a long way in meditation practice. But when we want to become better people, when we want maybe to become an Arahanht, or if there are some people who are from the Mahayana tradition, if you want to become a Buddha, you need to practice inside as well. Wisdom needs to arise for you to become a better person, for you to understand that thinking unwholesome, evil thoughts, doing unwholesome, evil things does not lead anywhere good. So the way is, as you find it in the suttas, that you understand, I need to change. And then you train, then you start to practice. By the practice that you do, your sense doors, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, so your sense doors, all 6 sense doors, they start to shut. So the teachers say, keep your sense doors closed. And that is, we are becoming less reactive. We had talks about being reactive or becoming less reactive, so you can just listen to it. But we need to train that. We need to train, really. This is not something that we can do easily. We need to train to become less reactive. Our mind is trained, has learned from early age on to react on everything. So we need some concentration and we need some awareness that we do not react on everything, because then we are totally caught up in samsara. We need to let go of many of the things that our mind grasps and our heart is attached to. You train this with concentration. This gives you the calm and the stability to bear, like, imagine your telephone ringing. It's really a bearing up with it, hearing it ringing, and not to go and attend to it, and not to to attend to the telephone, but to really just let it be. Let it be as it is. Let it ring. This is something you really have to learn to bear up with, that things are catching your attention, are knocking, as it is said in the Abhidhamma, at the sense doors constantly. Everything around you is knocking at your sense doors, and we need to find ways not to attend to it anymore. We do it in the Mahasi Sayadaw technique, or what I practice is a little variation of it from Ajahn Tong. We name things, and when we name them, we know them, and when we know them, we easier can let go of them. We also understand and we learn how quickly they arise and cease, and how fast things are happening, and how our attention is trying to hold, but actually it's not possible, because things are knocking so frequent and so overwhelmingly plentiful at our sense doors, that we learn to attend single pointedly, one pointedly, only to one thing at a time, and that 100%. And when you attend to one thing at a time, 100%, you have only this thing in your mind. So we would say, let's say I sit here. No, nothing is happening, so that makes it a little bit difficult. But what is always happening? So we sit there and we observe the breath. And when we breathe in, we say rising. And we breathe out and say falling. Because we can observe that this is what is happening within our body. When our body is upright and relaxed, the lungs fill with air. And as they fill, they will massage all your organs that are hanging just relaxed within your skin and within the ribs. And these are just very tenderly getting a massage by the breath going in and out. And as you are being relaxed, your abdomen can go either this way or that way, in and out. And we just observe that as it is doing the rising, as we breathe in, and falling of the abdomen as we breathe out. So here still nothing has happened, but I was thinking in the meantime about what I would say next. So I would say thinking, thinking, thinking. Rising, falling, feeling, feeling. I'm having an experience at my cheek now. It's not really itching. That's why I'm not saying itching. Rising, falling, sitting, itching, 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 moving, because I'm moving my lips. Relaxing, rising, falling, sitting, rising, falling, itching, itching, rising, falling, switching, switching, waiting, waiting. Because I noticed that I waited. I started to wait that something might happen. So maybe a sound or something. Itching, 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 moving, moving, rising, falling, sitting, and so forth. So you would name everything that is going on in your present moment. That in the beginning you might, in the beginning of naming it, it might even feel as if it were, say, a little bit disturbing your silence. But that is only the case because when you do high concentration meditation, where you focus on just one point, you just suppress everything. I do teach Robert samatha meditation. Not so much anymore because I find this naming very, very helpful. But I did spend 30 years of my life before I started with Vipassana. I started with samatha meditation. So yes, I would teach it if it were necessary. But the good thing of this method of Mahasi Sayadaw or Ajahn Tong with the naming is that it combines a strong samatha with insight meditation. Particularly the Ajahn Tong method combines these things really brilliantly. So in the beginning, you might think, this is so disturbing, this is so bothering, all this naming. But after a while, it really calms you down and really things start to slow down. And you can become really, really calm and still by naming not maybe in the first session, maybe not even in the first retreat, but once you got a grip on the method, it can make you tremendously still. And the aim in the beginning, before you aim for enlightenment, would be to come to UPK. So, which is the same aim of samatha meditation, when you have UPK in the fourth jhana. So, I think this meditation technique is quite brilliant. And of course, we can, when we sit here for some minutes, we can't do everything that you would have learned when you would come here and do a meditation retreat. Of course, the basic meditation retreat takes 2-3 weeks, depending on how much experience you have in meditation. And samatha, so samadhi, is a factor of enlightenment. This is not to be underestimated. You need samatha, you need concentration or focus. Otherwise, enlightenment would never be excuse me, would never be possible. And you also need insights, you need awareness, and you need to build up that wisdom. So you need to train in the end both. And when I meet people like me who practiced samatha for a very long time, it's very, very difficult for them to develop vipassana and develop insights, because all that they want, or I was the same 10 years back, is there's that craving for that temporary stillness. And these are nice feelings, and you feel happy and serene and so on. But when you come out, you're the same idiot as you ever were. So, because in that samatha practice, it's not so much insight, and you don't train it, and your mind only can do what you train. That is why now I more often really teach vipassana in a way that it combines a strong samatha and an insight part, where you could also practice the things individually. You can do only the rising, falling, sitting. That is mere, complete, and only concentration. Whereas when you go through to the things that are happening, like the itching, the thinking, when there is something that you hear, you name hearing, hearing, hearing. Then also you would name that. And this is the sati part. And by naming these things, you can really become wise, because you look at each individual moment, and by looking at them, not by pondering, not by thinking about them, but by just looking at them, you would understand what is going on. Okay, I think this is it for today. I hope, well, if you have more questions, I didn't check. So, I would say that maybe, would it, just write me some comments. Would it be okay, or would you like to talk more about the meditation? And, or do you want to hear about Namarupa? Just give me some hints in the comments. And so the similarities between a Buddha and an Arahant is that they both have achieved Nibbana, having freed themselves from desire and all 10 fetters, and will not be reborn. Right, these are the similarities. And in that, the Buddha and the Arahants are the same. Exactly. And we talked about the differences. Okay, then if there are no comments, you'll hear about Namarupa, I think, next week. Bye-bye. Be well, everyone.